Welcome to Adjusting to Six Figures. Two best friends that turn their lives around, professionally and personally. So if you're looking to change, we tell it like it is, with no bullshit. Shut up with the excuses and make something of your life. Let's do this. This is Adjusting to Six Figures. And here are your hosts, Jeremy Rettig and Chris Stanley.
Welcome, everybody, to the next episode of the Adjusting to Six Figures podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Rettig, riding solo today. And today I've got a really special guest. We've got possibly one of the most known, I feel like, one of the most known names in the restoration biz. I mean, when I think of restoration, I think of one name, and that's Andy McCabe. Andy, how are you doing today, man?
Dude, so good, my dog. Hanging in, man. Hanging in.
Yeah, man. And of course, guys, this episode, as with all the other episodes, brought to you by adjusteruniversity.com. Head on over to adjuster-university.com. Whether you are an independent insurance adjuster of any sort, or you're thinking about getting into it, just head on over to adjuster-university.com. Check out what we've got. Use coupon code 6FIGS. That's the number 6 and FIGS with a Z, and get 25% off any course. Andy, have not had a conversation with you in how long has it been since we've seen each other?
Well, when was Hurricane Harvey?
Hurricane Harvey had to have been 2017. Yeah. There you go.
We broke bread at some dive bar down by the hotel. And
we did. Yeah.
Man, that was a long time ago. And then we both went our separate ways and I must have put 2,000 miles on my rental car in that storm and didn't leave Houston. I mean,
right. How long were you down there? First of all, what were you doing down there? I know you've got a bunch of different hats that you wear. Were you working restoration in Houston?
One of my previous employers, there's a long list of probably about 144 different people I've worked for. So I was working for a restoration company. They just got bought. ATI just got bought, didn't they? I think the VC venture capital firm. Anyway,
did they? Okay. Yeah.
So they had one of their biggest clients, one of the biggest property owners across the country, had a ton of apartments that needed moisture maps. So we were there for a month, just knocking on doors, doing moisture maps.
Okay.
It's crazy.
What is a moisture map? I've heard that term a bunch, but I don't really know. What does that mean?
It's just it's a snapshot of the structure. What's wet, what's not. And that's it. And it's not complicated. You go through with your FLIR and your protometer, and you look for wet spots, you mark it on the diagram, and you go. And ownership gets a daily, what they use it for, just seeing how bad is the damage, how, out of our portfolio, what took the hit and what's it going to take to repair it. And the first step is what's damaged, what's wet. So that's what it is. It's basic. We're doing that. I've got a couple guys doing that in Houston, not Houston, New Orleans right now.
Okay. From the storm. Yeah.
And the bigger, it's less of an issue on the residential side because the restoration guys come in and, they gut it and go. But when you got something like a hospital that's active, they don't want to shut down. You have to be a little more finesse about it. So here's the damage. Let's come up with a game plan to address that damage without shutting down the entire emergency room, stuff like that.
That's the special part. I was going to say, because I've handled countless claims at this point with restoration companies of all sorts, big, small, and everything in between. But I've never had a inspection get held up because of a moisture map. Although I say that, and I do recall, I think it was a hospital actually, and it was getting thrown. I didn't get that involved, but so the moisture map is just like you say. It's when you can't just get in and start gutting things out. It's when you need to actually coordinate a plan around it. Okay.
Yeah, we did. We had an office building last week that our client asked us to come in. So on the consulting side, not the estimating side of what I do, but I've got restoration clients that don't necessarily have the in-house expertise to do what we do. So big storm hits, they hire us. So they had an office building, and they said, we need a moisture map before we're going to do anything. Well, we got there and they were ripping and tearing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we did a moisture map, but then they tore out the wet material. So it was a moot point.
Right.
So we kind of went through the motions on it, but some people require it as part of their risk management profile. They have to have the moisture map. It's just, they're just checking off a box.
Right.
Whether that information is actually useful or not is a different story. But hey,
Yeah.
those are decisions made above my head.
Now you said that your clients, and you've said this a few times, you have a lot of different hats, and I admire that. That's one of the biggest things I admire about you, because I know that you've worked as an independent adjuster, right?
I still do.
You still do. You work as a public adjuster as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you have are you the founder of the Restoration Rebels, the group?
Yeah. And it didn't turn into much more than a Facebook group, but yeah.
Okay.
So I was the original perpetrator on that one. It's still going a little bit. We had some drama.
I've heard of them so many times, even outside of the Facebook group. I even met someone one time that knew who you were. But so you have that. But am I wrong in saying, and because I've built this image about you that public adjusters are obviously, you call them advocates for homeowners, but are you also in a way an advocate for restorers as well?
Very much so. Very much so. I saw that as part of my calling is there's so much, look at the entire claims ecosystem and look where follow the money, and none of it is on the restoration side. It's all carrier side stuff. So carriers come into these claims, they're hiring, $1,000 experts, and they're bringing a whole bunch of firepower to the table. And then you got a mom and pop, man in a van with a fan, trying to show up and do this work, but he's competing with essentially these experts, these Harvard guys, whatever. There's just a complete mismatch, and the homeowners, the business owners, are stuck in between. Like I need my work done. Here's a guy over here that is willing to do this work, but then I got to fight with, this big machine over here to get enough money to get it done. So I saw there's just a big old vacuum. There's no one on this side doing this stuff. Like you got look at the JS Helds and the, name your consultancy on a carrier side. Who's on that side? Nobody. It's goose egg. We're trying. We're starting fits and starts, but there's so much There's just so much misinformation and anti. If you're a PA, you're a dirty dog, and you're just there for running the claim up. And if you're a restoration guy, you're making millions of dollars and you're greedy. The moral high ground, I knew it from growing up in restoration. We do have the moral high ground. We serve the right, as it were. But we're fighting a big machine. So that's where I got into. Let's get some tools on our side. Let's try to level the playing field a little bit, and advocate for folks. It's big. It's been good. It's been fulfilling.
Do you feel like this might be a silly statement, but you feel like insurance companies in general are grown a habit of kicking restoration companies around?
Well, I think that's just it's accepted practice at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to go out, even the program guys who are supposed to be supporting this whole system. I don't know how much your audience understands program versus retail, but program is your alacrities, your contractor connections. The contractor is on a program. He gets fed all these leads, all these all these jobs to do. As a part of that program, he has to follow all these rules. But in among these rules are doing things for free that somebody like me would charge for.
Right.
So I'm going into probably Friday or Saturday, I'll be in a very nice part of New Orleans with a huge houses, and we're going to go in. We're going to Matterport scan them, and we're going to write up the repairs. We're going to write up the mitigation, and we're going to write up repairs. We're going to charge where our going are like we won't step on the property for less than $1,500, but the program contractor is expected to go do all that work for nothing, for free, for the right of, you get the opportunity to have this job. Well, there's a lot of cost that goes into that if you're doing it right. So yeah, the program guys especially just get walked on. They get taken advantage of because they're there, and they accept it. That's that's the other one of the things I'm fighting against. I don't want to get too high on my soapbox this early in the podcast, but
let's get high, baby.
yeah, we need to value ourselves, hold ourselves a whole lot. We need to, if we don't value ourselves, no one else is going to value us.
100%.
And it starts with us just saying, no, I'm not going to do that for free. No, there is value in this service I'm providing. And yeah, I happen to be on your program, but that doesn't make me your slave. That doesn't make me your dog. You can just lead around on a leash, and feed me once in a while. No, I run a business. I'm a human being. We support people, but that's what gets lost. It's people and businesses operating in a very non-human environment. Big business is just, there's no emotion, there's no humanity. It's just numbers. So, yeah,
it's the classic trade-off, right? It's the trade-off between volume and profitability. You're losing out on profitability in exchange for the supposed guarantee of a high volume of work.
Yeah.
Right.
And where the math breaks down is you can't lose money on every job and hope to make it up on volume.
Right. We have the same on the independent side. I know you do IA work too. I've been high on my soapbox too with the same argument that there's plenty of people who do IA work that will go with a lot of these large companies, the Alacrities and whatnot, and will take the higher volume of work, but that work is low. It's low quality work. You're not respected by the people who you're working with, and you're getting paid very, very little. And one of the big arguments that you'll find is that so many people believe that it's because of those adjusters that are enabling certain insurance carriers to pay less, because they're finding that there are people out there that will accept that work. And in exchange for it's sort of the go between actual running your own business and taking on 100% of the risk and just being an employee. It's in a way, it's kind of like that middle ground where, yeah, you're running your own business, but just like you said, you're a slave. So it's sort of a pseudo business, I guess. You're not really
pseudo business. I like that.
You're not really progressing. You're not growing. You don't have enough profitability to grow. But you're paying your mortgage and you're paying your staff, and you maybe you got enough to go to Disney at the end of the year.
Yeah, you're maintaining a lifestyle, but you're not growing a business.
No,
there's not enough money. On 60% of Alacrity's fee schedule is not enough to reinvest in your business and actually scale.
Right.
And that's where I'm at, frankly, with my business is I'm going to have to go find some money, go find somebody that believes in an idea in order to get an infusion to scale this thing, because I'm not spitting off enough cash every month to reinvest at the rate that I need to scale. Right now I've got me and five-ish folks that work underneath me, and it's a great pyramid scheme. I'm doing the Alacrity thing. I'm charging one rate and I'm paying out this rate and I'm making money on the margin, but I need to take that 5 and make it 500. And that's a real thing. That's a real business. But right now, yeah, it's a great lifestyle. I was able to buy a really nice bike so I can go ride downhill mountain bikes with my boys.
Yeah.
But I'm not buying a building and moving into it and building this a real business. So we're all pretending to be business owners. We're just maintaining our lifestyles. I've gotten probably 20 text messages from Alacrity in the last 2 weeks. They are
Yeah.
desperate for folks. But to
Oh,
your
for
point,
IA work? Yeah.
60% of that fee schedule, I'm not willing to go, but obviously somebody is.
Right.
Somebody is actually going for that 60%. And no, we will pay you 60% of your fee schedule, and you got to be here on Saturday. Not we'll give you $1,500 to deploy and be here on Saturday. No, you show up on Saturday, and we may or may not give you some claims at 60% of our fee schedule. It's like we don't have respect for ourselves anymore.
Right. And I'll tickle your PA bone right here. When you think about it, what type of and I have a lot of new adjusters that listen to this podcast, and and I don't want this to sound like disrespect or anything like that, but when you're Alacrity, okay, let's say USAA, I'm going to use USAA as an example, because USAA is infamous for low paying. They just recently changed the amount that they'll pay to their IA staff for obvious reasons, but infamous for low paying, for being a low paying insurance carrier. When you're looking when you need immediate staff and you are going to pay, and Alacrity is huge with USAA, and they send and of course USAA has nothing to do with the 60%. That's just an Alacrity thing. But when you're sending out a mass text message saying you will pay 60%, which if you're listening and you don't understand what the 60% is, it's 60% of the fee, which is standard. That is this. You might as well. That's not even copy. That's not even a way to sell somebody. 60%. That is where you start. Yeah. If you get less, if you're offered less than 60%, they're spitting in your face. So in this point, they're just giving you the bare minimum to leave your house.
It's not even. Yeah. It's not even additional. Hey, we really need people. Here's a couple more points. No.
Yeah, it's just don't even put the 60% in, because maybe you might think that it's more, and then it's more appealing. But yeah, so 60%, and you got to be there by Saturday. You think about it like this, use USA as an example, okay? And you have veterans, people that defended our country, okay? Mm-hmm. And what type of adjuster would sign on to a last minute deployment for an insurance carrier that pays significantly less than average at a percentage that is, I'd average at best, the base? What type of adjuster would that be? That's going to be the ones that are just starting out, that don't
know better.
It's going to be the ones that don't have better options. If they have better options, they want to go. And that is a very, very low option. And again, no disrespect to anybody that's out there, but that's what you're going to get. Now, then you're going to have somebody, sergeant, whoever, that has an insurance claim, and they're forced to deal with that person. So it's, to circle back, it's to your point. It's, there are people out there that are trading profitability for volume, and they think that that's a good start. And it might be a good start. And maybe you can comment on this. Maybe it is a good start if you're a newly starting restoration company. I mean, are there scenarios where you would recommend getting on to one of these becoming a program vendor and doing all that? Or are you strictly?
There's a time and a place. And if you can't get work any other way, well, you got to get work. You got to get fed.
Right.
So yeah, program might be a viable option. I've got a client that next year he's going to turn down $4.5 million of revenue. Why would he do that? Because it's program work and it's not profitable. He's spending more admin time and hassle and running around. He's spending more money to do $4.5 million than just cutting that off and concentrating on a different segment of his business. So if you're new, you're starting out, IA or restoration contractor, yeah, take the work where you can get it, because more than the money, you need the experience.
Right.
You need to get out in the field. You need to see some claims to really understand this crazy world you're about to step into. None of us knew, right? You
Yeah.
didn't know. I certainly didn't know what the hell was going on when I got into this. I was just a stupid marketing guy. I had a marketing degree out of college, and they were hiring a marketing guy. What's that mean? I was a donut dropper. I was seeing agents. I was seeing every agent in the Portland metro area every 3 months dropping donuts or tchotchkes and whatever else. But I had no idea there's $300 billion industry of folks that all they do is insurance repairs. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But there is. But you don't know. Early on, I mean, you're drinking from a fire hose. Take the experience. But be honest with yourself what that is. You're not getting paid well. So what are you getting paid in? You're getting paid in experience and knowledge, and build as soon as you possibly can. Build your own marketing machine. Build your own referral system, and get off the dole. Get off. I searching for PG words in my mouth here.
I'll drop it, man. Let's try. We can say whatever we want on here.
Get off the tit is what I
Yeah.
usually say, and because they will bury you. If you're an IA or new restoration contractor on, it's amazing how many similarities there are between those two groups of folks. Neither one really understands the industry of what they're getting into, but get off those doles as soon as you can, because it's a crutch, and you will design your business systems to the lowest common denominator, and that's not designed to grow. You're not thinking about your end game. You're not thinking about retirement at that point. You're thinking about keeping the lights on, and you can only operate in that really scarcity. It's a tough time starting out. I had a really hard time starting out. That's why I started Claims Delegates in 2012. I hung it up in 2014, restarted it in 2015, hung it up again when I went to work for ATI, and then restarted it after I got fired. So it's not easy. It's not an easy gig. But now it's 2012, so 8-9 years of this, right? Pumping out content. I've got 300 videos on YouTube. I've got, one call a week or 2 emails a week. Someone says, "Hey, I just watched all your videos and blah, blah, blah. Let's do that." Yeah. You've got to build your own lead system. And for IAs, where do IAs get, where do IAs get work if they're not working for Alacrity?
Where do they get work? I mean, that's that's my wheelhouse. I mean, you have to turn into a marketing machine. That's it.
But who do you market to? That's always been my question. I never really wanted the work. I got my license because I was forced to. The state. Did I tell you that story?
No. How does that? Please elaborate. Well, I'll jump back to my thing. But what do you mean you were forced? Why? Because was it tied into restoration? Because you were going out and they wanted you to.
2012, I decided I'm sick of, I didn't want to work for anybody else. Frankly, I'm a terrible employee. That's why I have to run
Hey, I am
business.
too, man. I'm the worst.
I am the worst. So I went out. I got good at this thing called Xactimate. And I had a little bit of a light bulb moment interacting with a public adjuster on a claim where I was a consultant for the first time ever. I was working for a restoration contractor. They had a consulting department, which meant they were just a paid IA service for certain adjusters, large loss adjusters that would go estimate large losses on the opposite side of public adjusters and things like that. So I'm at this huge house. Actually, it wasn't a huge house anymore. It was burnt to the ground. So I'm looking at this big foundation with a big pile of rubble on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I work up a $425,000 estimate. And the PA hits me with a $650,000 estimate. And then we start, we start doing the do. We
Right.
hash it out. But at the end of the day, I didn't have to produce that work.
Right.
And I already said I'm a bad employee. I'm a terrible project manager. I don't like building stuff.
Yeah.
I like the technical side of it. I like sales, but building a house and dealing with the homeowner or business owner and all the emotions to get that house built, it was a bane in my existence. So here's an opportunity for me. Okay, I can use my skill set. I can get really good at Xactimate and do this thing and the technical stuff, but I don't have to produce the work. Sign me up.
Right.
I want it. So
same here. So I have a similar story for me. Yeah.
That's what I started doing. So I was writing estimates, Xactimate only, for contractors or homeowners. Somebody turned me into the state of Oregon. I got a phone call from the state of Oregon, and nice lady on the phone. Hey, we want you to come down to Salem and have a conversation. And at the time, I'm green, I'm anxious. I'm like, yeah, I'll come down to Salem. Let's have a conversation. I had no clue. Clue. So I go down there. Salem is the state capital of Oregon. Go into this nondescript building at the state capitol. Go into the office. Hey, I'm so and so. Okay, come in here. They lead me into an office with no windows.
Okay, like an interrogation room.
Two ladies come in behind me. Yeah, please have a seat, Mr. McCabe, and they close the door.
My enthusiasm would be gone at this point.
So as I sit down, one of them pushes a tape recorder across the table. The other one pushes a badge.
Oh, no. Yeah. My dick would have just jumped in my body at that point.
Oh, shit. Why did I come down here? But at the end of the day, they wanted to know what I was doing.
Right.
Someone said I was being a public, doing UPA, the unlicensed practice of public adjusting.
Right.
And it can be a serious thing. And I laid it out there. Hey, this is what I do. All I do is write estimates, blah, 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 blah. I described the claims ecosystem on a small level. And I said, here's the homeowner, here's the insurance company or adjuster, and here's the contractor. And I described the point in the claim where the contractor and insurance company start doing this negotiating. These are high grade cabinets. No, these are average grade cabinets. This is regular vinyl. No, this is super duper, whatever.
Right.
And the lady said, stop right there. When these two people are talking, where's this person? The insured. I said, well, they're gone. They're right. The insured just checks out. They file a claim. They hire a contractor. The contractor comes in and handles the claim for them. And most of them would just want to check out. And she said, well, right there, that's where you're breaking the law.
Really?
I said, what do you mean? You are having a negotiation, direct negotiation with the insurance carrier in the absence of the insured. That is a licensed function, and that's breaking the law. And I said, wait a minute. If I'm breaking the law, this law is being broken 1,000 times a day across the country.
For every contractor, right?
By every single contractor.
Yeah.
Every single contractor. So I'll never forget what she said. She said, Mr. McCabe, we're not here to talk about every contractor. We're here to talk about you.
Wait.
What?
Why you, though?
Because it's an anonymous tip system. Some jerk off didn't like me, didn't like what I was doing, and turned me into the state for unlicensed practice of public adjusting. So she said, Mr. McCabe, I'll give you a choice. You can keep doing what you're doing, and we'll fully investigate you. You can stop what you're doing. In my mind, why the fuck would I do that?
Right, can't do that.
I can't do that. It's my business, it's my livelihood. Or I'll give you 90 days to go get your license. Option C, done.
Yeah. Was that licensed as an independent or as a public adjuster at that point?
Right. Oregon, the general adjuster's license is not delineated between PA and IA.
Oh, it's just the same. Okay.
So that's how I became an IA at the same time. So my license number goes out there and I start getting these calls. Hey, I see you're licensed in Portland. Do you want to handle some claims? I'm like, fine, whatever. If they had any idea, seriously, CSAA, hello, if you're watching this, you really going to send me another claim in Bend, Oregon? Because you know it's going to be written really well.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'll say another story down along that line, because I'm a restoration guy. I come at it from, and no offense to any IA, especially you, Jeremy, but you don't write a sheet so it can be built. You write a sheet to set reserves, right? You write a sheet to get the claim going and down the road. It doesn't matter how much money is in that to actually do the work for
To an
you.
extent. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Because, you're not there when the supplement gets filed, right? You're not there when permits get pulled and material gets ordered, right? You are gone. You are way
Depending.
gone.
Yeah. Depending on who you're working with. Sometimes it's nice when I'm not, but yeah.
And you might have some claims that you handle soup to nuts, cradle to grave, and that's a different story. But when I write a sheet, it's a moneymaker. That contractor is going to take that estimate and actually be able to produce it and make some money at the end of the day.
Right.
I had a nationwide claim here a few years ago. We had a huge snowstorm. We're talking 6 and 7 feet of snow and ice on people's roofs. So there's a lot of damage. This guy had a really nice house, really big house, clay tile roof, and a huge garage. In the middle, the ridge of his garage was doing one of these. So he broke. I mean, there was some busted stuff. No good way to tactfully take a clay tile roof apart, nicely set it on the lawn or whatever, and then put it back on. No, you replace it.
Good luck. Yeah.
And yeah, if you want to patch this in, it's going to look like sin.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I'm going to use that. Patch it in. It looks like sin. Oh, that's good stuff right there. So I wrote to replace the whole thing. It's a nationwide claim. I'm the IA. Hey, so 4 months later, I get a call from the insured, the homeowner, because I gave him my card. I told him I was local. They said, "What the F are you doing?" I'm like, whoa, hold up. What's going on? I wrote a $60,000 repair estimate. They got paid out $15,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, I was the IA. I had nothing to do with this claim after I left my desk. Well, they were looking at a $15,000 estimate with my name on it.
Right.
Because Nationwide had taken that sheet and just butchered it. And they got an engineer out there to say, oh, this is old damage, blah, 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 blah. It's horseshit. But
yeah, unfortunately, that's a huge thing that happens.
It's a problem. And they don't just do it to IAs. They do it to guys, restoration guys on the program. They will butcher your sheet and leave your name on it.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be legal.
Is that even legal? It can't be legal. I feel like it shouldn't be legal.
I feel like it shouldn't be. I mean, there's probably a loophole somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But if you're going to butcher my sheet, take my name off of it. That's not my work product anymore.
Right.
Anyway,
that's a big issue, and even I still deal with it today. I mean, it's for IAs when you're writing an estimate for the insurance carrier. It's tough to draw the line between customer service and just being a team player and playing by the rules, and then compromising your own integrity. If you write up an estimate for one of these big name carriers that have a book of rules this thick, and you write up a great estimate and they come back with all their rules and they chop it down, and you go from, say, a $50,000 estimate to 38. I mean, but they will still want you to sign your name off. And probably when that supplement comes down the line, guess who's going to be handling it? Not the other person. You're going to be handling it. So, as you're sitting there wondering, well, I wouldn't expect this person to this company to pay to only charge $38,000. It should be 50, 45 at best. It's and then even it comes down to, I just recently had a file where they wanted me to, it's small things where they wanted me to, I had a large loss, and I set the timeline for restoration to be 6 months, 6 months, 1 month for a permit, 5 months for the rebuild.
Easy.
And they come, it's whatever. They come back and they say, no, you need to set this at 12 months. And I said, no, because I don't believe that. This isn't a commercial, humongous commercial building. This is a small house, 5 months to I've been a part of these, and it comes down because it's probably just a person with a cheat sheet that doesn't actually know anything about.
Who wanted you to increase it to 12 months?
What was that?
Who wanted you to increase it to 12
Oh,
months?
it was just a IA firm file
Okay.
reviewer. So,
Okay.
somebody like that. And it's just, but that's a small example of a much larger example of how, these companies, whether it's just the IA firm or the insurance carrier, they expect you to be a team player in a lot of circumstances and alter your own opinion to fit their own, but you maintain complete ownership of that opinion still. So if it backfires on you, well, it's what you said,
That's hard.
Yeah, good luck at that deposition, where you explain how, no, I didn't say that. I just wrote my name at the bottom.
Yeah. One of my favorite questions I've answered on the stand, on the, like, raise your right hand on the stand, was, Mr. McCabe, we see in your first estimate written on whatever date it was that you've got a full replacement of this roof. But on your fourth iteration of the same estimate, you've only got a partial replacement on this roof. Can you explain to us and the jury why that is?
Sure can.
And I said, easy. The adjuster told me to.
Yeah.
The adjuster, I'm on the restoration side working with an adjuster. The adjuster says, no, I'm not giving you that whole roof. You're going to write it and I said, fine. Okay. Because I'm a team player. Well, guess what? That jury awarded that whole goddamn roof.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
The whole thing.
It looks terrible. Yeah. It sounds terrible. Looks terrible. It's just bullshit, man.
And that's what it comes down to is these rules, this stack of rules that every single carrier has, that doesn't exist in the policy.
Right.
This is all extra policy add-on.
Right.
None of these things, very few of these things that we do as just a matter of course actually are predicated on policy language.
Right.
And that's a big part of what I push. Even with Xactimate, you're not required to use Xactimate to get your insurance claim settled.
Right.
It helps. It helps get an apples to apples comparison. There's a lot of good reasons why we should use Xactimate, but you don't have to. You can write it on a napkin. I mean, you can, here's my estimate right there. It doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be accurate, and it has to be auditable. So, these things we take for granted, like this is the rule. Well, is it though?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's where I'm going with my next iteration of whatever I'm pushing out there is there are some hard and fast rules, but everything else negotiable. Everything else.
Let me ask you a question, because I've seen you write your opinion on this, and I have my own opinion, kind of.
Okay.
Those audits, when you get audited, all right, you've put out you've already rendered service, let's say, and you have that invoice, and you submit that invoice. Okay, are you submitting it? Who are you submitting that to? Do you work directly with the homeowner and you exclude the insurance company, or do you submit to the insurance company, do a direction of payment and all that sort of stuff? What's the best strategy there?
Speaking from, like, as if I'm a restorer?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. On the mitigation side, emergency services, drying, demolition.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big problem. My side of the industry is we keep calling it an estimate.
Right.
How is it an estimate when you already did the work?
Right.
This is an invoice.
They overuse the word estimate 100%. And contractor.
This
too.
is not a negotiable document, right?
Right.
Mitigation side is an invoice. Now, repair side, I put together a nice repair estimate. I don't do the work. That's a claim settlement tool. That's not an estimate. It's a claim settlement tool. But yeah, invoice. I advocate bill your client. Because how can you invoice? How can you collect from your client if you don't bill your client?
Right.
And thousands of times a day, contractors think they're doing the right thing by excluding the insured from the billing process and submitting their invoice / estimate for services rendered to the carrier and saying, well, here it is, pay it. And they wonder why they get beat up on it.
Right.
Because we're giving them the opportunity to beat us up on it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no, in my mind, you yeah, and that's where we fall down on our side. We don't dot all the I's and cross all the T's. We do work without contracts. I don't advocate it, but that's what happens. And, there's a ton of folks that went into New Orleans last couple of weeks, and they're ripping and tearing. They don't have a contract in place with a homeowner. They're just relying on the goodwill of an adjuster somewhere back at a desk to pay their bill at the end of the day. They got no contractual backup to anything. So I'm a big advocate of treat the claim as if the insurance company doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Put together a work authorization, put together a schedule of fees, negotiate and contract with your client, do the work and bill your client. Easy peasy. And then if your client wants to turn that invoice into their insurance company and collect it, they should, but it has nothing to do with the work you did. It has nothing to do with you, and you're under no obligation to further negotiate the work that you already did with somebody who wasn't there when it was done.
Yeah. And in what cases would you do that normally? If you're just a homeowner and you received a bill from the plumber that came out, and your water heater busted, or, you had some work done, and the plumber gives you the bill, and then you give the bill back to the plumber and you say, well, and then you negotiate at that point.
Yeah, it's like going to a nice dinner, eating the dinner, and then going back to the chef's. Yeah, it was a good steak, but it wasn't a $60 steak.
Right.
How about 30?
Right. My compound butter was a little bit light. I believe that should factor in at least $2.80 off of the. Yeah.
And according to my industry standards, the butter should have had a different consistency.
If you don't agree, we can bring in an expert. And we'll pay this bill at some time in the next 6 months.
6 months, if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, yeah. So let me ask you, when you do that, what's your history with these companies like, what do we have? I think Alacrity does it, Wardlaw, these auditing company, these peer review companies, they come in. So if the homeowner submits that bill, right, to insurance, hoping to collect the money, and then they assign, and then the insurance says, well, this is over our $2,500 threshold or whatever, we're going to give it to some person who may or may not be qualified to do this and negotiate.
We're going to kick it up the line. Yep.
Right. And see what we can get. I know like Wardlaw, those people get like $100. I thought of it from a insurance standpoint. I'm like, yeah, why wouldn't they, for $100, they could send a $10,000 mitigation invoice. They could send it to Wardlaw for $100. Wardlaw will just try to do something. Yep. And if they save 100, odds are they're going to save $100. And I've seen a lot of these things. I used to work for an insurance carrier, and I've seen a lot of these things come through, and they negotiate. They go down, and they make their, the insurance company recovers that $100 several times over.
Easy.
Right. But what was funny, and I won't drop the name of the insurance company here. What was interesting was I was already told that if Wardlaw comes back and they say, hey, these guys stuck, they stuck their heels in the ground, they didn't move, we just pay the fucking claim. So it's like I'm thinking like, so we're gonna pay the claim, pay mitigation no matter what. But if it's over, I think it's like $2,500, send it to them and just see what happens. And these mitigation companies, they don't even know that they're just throwing profit out the window.
It's a roll of the dice. They're going back. There's rolling the dice. Let's throw some at the wall, see what sticks. And these guys, they don't understand that they don't have to negotiate these things. And let's be real, a lot of these guys need the money. They need 75% of that money today, more than they need 100% of that money in 2 months, because they're not going to be here in 2 months if they don't get the money. And that's the dirty side.
Right.
That's the dirty pool side of, I'm going to squeeze you because I know you need the money more than I do.
Right.
That's the dirty side. But yeah, I tell folks and Restoration Rebels, we haven't brought it up yet, but I mean, that's the thing. We don't negotiate with terrorists. Your bill is your bill. You got no obligation. Well, the adjuster keeps calling me. Keep hanging up, because the adjuster doesn't work for you. You don't work for them. You have a client. You serviced your client, bill your client. And people don't like to hear it, but bill the client, file the lien. Because guess what? That claim that has a lien on it is going to get paid before that claim without a lien on it. And that's just that's just fact. That's just real. And yeah, you might have to perfect that lien. Perfect that lien means you actually file to foreclose on that property, but it never gets done. It always gets paid. And it's a game of chicken. You're staring this, and it's a huge game of chicken. And it sucks that it has to be like that. But if we're talking real money, $25,000 MIT is a big MIT. That's a lot of money to a guy. That's a lot of money to me. Why would I take 15? I don't have to. The reality is it's not unheard of, especially in the Restoration Rebel community, to have $300,000-$400,000 in accounts receivable, 60, 90, 120 days out. That's a very real thing. And that's where my client is turning off $4.5 million worth of revenue next year. He made that decision. That $4.5 million, that's 120 plus days old, is not worth as much. And that 2 other admin I had to hire to handle this program work, because it's just button pushing at a certain point, I can lower my overhead, increase my profit margins, and do less work. So I can do less work and bring more home. No brainer. Turning off. Right. $4.5 million gone.
Right.
And what's going to happen to that volume is the next lowest common denominator contractor is going to come in and pick up that slack.
Same thing. Yep.
Just like the IA side, there's always going to be someone to take that lower fee schedule.
Mm-hmm.
They may or may not be here in 5 years, but that's not anyone's concern. Apparently, we don't want to train anyone. We don't want to invest in anyone. We just want to find someone to do it cheaper, and then when they're gone, we're going to find somebody else.
Right. Worst case scenario, we are underpaying claims. Mm-hmm. Or best case scenario, who knows?
Yeah.
It's
dirty, man.
Yeah. I think I caught you saying earlier that you grew up doing restoration. Is that, are you the first and only person in your family to do this, or did you have, somebody else that was already involved?
Yeah. Growing up is probably not the best way to put it. Right out of college.
Right out of college. Okay.
And so starting on the marketing side, very much the clean side of restoration. I didn't get dirty at all. And then as soon as the company I was working for realized that I had some inherent skill set, I was good with computers and blah, 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 they said, okay, we're going to put you on a project management track. But before you do that, you've got to do all this other stuff. So I went from marketing guy to water damage technician. I was sucking poo and insulation out of crawl spaces and doing understanding this business at a very, visceral level. When you come in, we had so many ice storms in Portland during my time there. You're working all day because every cooling tower in every mall busted, and you're coming out, you're sucking water all night in the Macy's. And you come back to the office and you're chipping ice off the sidewalk at 2:30 in the morning. So the crew, when they come in at 6, doesn't slip and fall and break their face. You chip ice. You go into the shop and you lay down on the couch for a couple hours and you wake up and do it all over again. That's where I cut my teeth in restoration, doing the do. And that's where my passion lies in that. I want to give those guys as many tools as I can. And that's where the 24-hour tech came from. That's a tool for the technician to do their job more efficiently and easier, make their life easier. That's what the 24-hour tech is all about. Ostensibly it's about the project manager getting the information he needs to write good estimates and invoices. But at the end of the day, it's about getting the water damage technician. The face of your business is the water damage technician, giving them the tools to do their job better. That's where I have a big passion for teaching people to do that better.
Yeah, it's certainly underserviced.
It really is.
And that's why I said And that's why I said at the head of the podcast, I mean, when I think of restoration, I think of you. Who else are you going to think of?
I don't know.
There's not, there, as far as, other personas in the industry, there's not many. I mean, even the IA side, I mean, I believe you're in a much larger niche than I am, but yeah, just nobody's taken the stand on there.
Well,
and
it's a target, man. It's, I didn't know. If I knew at the time, would I do it again? I don't know, because I put a big target on my back, and it started in 2012 with that call to the state of Oregon, and it hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
Nationwide, the VP of claims for Nationwide Insurance and somebody pretty high up at Travelers Insurance got me fired from ATI.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I mean, we can put this out there. I'm not afraid to say it. Call me on it, whoever is in charge there. But when you call my boss and say, we're not going to send you any more work because you hired Andy McCabe, you created an Andy McCabe problem for ATI and they had to fire me. I'm going to take that personally. I'm not going to forget that, Nationwide. I'm not going to. But to your point, Jeremy, I'm out there because no one else wants to be out there. The first guy through the wall always gets bloody. And I've been bloody.
100%. Yeah. 100%. So I want to jump back on claims delegates. So what, I guess here's my question. You go to a cocktail party and somebody asks, what do you do? What do you tell them?
I'd say I help people with insurance claims.
Yeah. That's similar to what I do. I help people blank and then whatever I can think of.
Yeah. When people say, it comes up, oh, I wrote a book. Oh, what's about? Water damage.
Like, what do you mean? It's just, you went from enthusiastic, like, wow, an author, anything I've read? No.
Afraid not.
So, all right. So all right. So now you help people with their insurance claims. Is that what is claims delegates? Is that what that's about?
Primarily, claims delegates is an Xactimate estimating farm.
Okay.
That's, I enable folks to handle lots of volume on the estimating and invoicing side without adding overhead, without adding body count.
For restorers on the restoring side?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I bill myself as the alternative to hiring a full-time employee.
Okay.
Because we can write, my math, and I've done it a few times over the years. I estimate that a project manager, full-time on-staff project manager with a car and insurance and blah 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 blah, they cost about 9% of their revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So if they handle a 1.5 million, which should be that should be table stakes for your average project manager in the restoration world. For all you guys, you number geeks out there, if you're not handling 1.5 million as a PM, you're underperforming.
Yeah.
And if you're not giving your PM enough opportunities to get 1.5 million, it doesn't make sense to have that person on staff because it costs you 9% of that 1.5.
Right.
And somebody like claims delegates can come in and do not the whole thing, right? We're not going to come in and manage projects on a daily basis. We'll do it on an emergency basis. Obviously, we're doing that right now. But on a daily basis, we're not going to come handle your claims and sell your jobs and do all the stuff. But we will estimate for you, and it's going to cost you less than 1% of the revenue.
Right.
It's a no-brainer. 9%, 1%. That's my sale. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's all we do all day, every day. We are damn good, right? I mean, you are damn good, Jeremy. You are good at what you do. You can spit out a good sheet real quick. And in this world, that's what it's about. Good sheet real quick.
Yeah.
You got to have speed. You got to do velocity, as my good friend David Herring says. Is handle claims at velocity.
David Herring. Yeah. I know David Herring. Yeah. I've ran into his estimates before in New Jersey. Yeah. Right loss. Yeah. I've seen it before. And I remember on one, oh, it was a crazy high estimate, but it was like a basement or something like that. And I saw the public adjuster gave me an estimate and it's had write loss on it. And I went to the guy, I was like, this is David Herring, right? And he was like, I don't know who that is. And I'm like, never mind.
Never mind.
But yeah. So, all right. So the service so claims delegate. So if, I mean, I'll tell you this, I've been for years contemplating the idea of just starting a restoration company, with all the shit that I've seen.
Yep.
But so if you're a person and you started a restoration company, I mean, am I right in thinking the service that you provide is a good service to have so that you can focus less of your time on the actual development of the invoice, all of that, so you can take that off your table, because maybe at that point you're just not large enough, like you said, to have a full-time person that just does that work. That's all they do. When you're not at that level yet, having a service like yours is basically almost like just hiring a freelancer to do your work, right? But you're an established business.
It's very specialized freelancing.
Right. Yes.
Because at the end of the day, there's so much nuance to what we do.
Right.
You can't, I was on Elance for a little bit.
Yes.
You can find an Xactimate estimator on Elance.
Yeah. I saw you on Upwork too, a long time ago.
Oh, that's right.
You're still on there.
That's
right.
I
saw you on there when I thought about setting myself up. I think I went on there and it said Andy McCabe, and I don't know if it, this was a while ago and things have changed, but I think it said like $0 that you've made on there or something low.
Probably.
And I saw that and I was like, well, if he's not getting any fucking money, I'm out of here. What am I going to do?
It's so hard. But back to why do you go on program work? Why do you take Alacrity fee schedules? Because you don't have any other means to get that work.
Right.
So whatever it took. And I did maybe 2 claims on Upwork. And at the end of the day, it became the platform is not, you need a insurance restoration claims focused platform to do something like that.
Right.
Because it takes more than, sending a couple graphics up to get a logo done. You've got to have so much documentation. I'm gonna preach on Matterport over and over again. That's why I hit Matterport so hard. You've got to have such a high level of documentation of the claim, of the structure as it sits, that your average person going to Upwork to try to find an estimate is not going to have the wherewithal to get that data. They're not going to be sophisticated enough as a remote worker to get you what you need. And that's the vast majority of my client onboarding and education and ongoing teaching is teaching them how to get the data in a way that we can write their sheets. But it's garbage in, garbage out. I've seen that 100 times. And if you don't have the right data, the sheet's never going to be right. The estimate's never going to be correct.
Right.
So yeah, it's tough, but you take the work where you can, man. You take it where you can. I shouldn't be going to New Orleans right now because I'm going to be sacrificing my day-to-day here to go take a maybe over there.
Right.
I don't know if you want to transition to cat work or nothing, right, or anything else right now, but
we can do that. Yeah.
That's a trade-off. So when you decide, either as an IA or restoration contractor or somebody like me just doing freelance stuff, when you decide to go out of market to go chase this thing, first off, you got to understand in your head, what are you chasing? Am I chasing a dream, or is this a real thing? These texts I keep getting I keep harping on Alacrity. It could be anybody, but Alacrity wants me to show up in New Jersey on Saturday. They're not going to give me any money to do that.
Right.
They're not going to tell me how many claims I'm going to get once I get there. They're not going to find a hotel for me. They're not going to pay for a rental car, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to take on all this risk with a maybe that I'll get a ton of claims.
Yeah.
I would rather deploy with a contract in hand. And that's been my rule I'm about to break it this week. Jeremy, maybe you can talk me down. Maybe you can talk me down.
All right. So what's going on? Hit me with it.
I've got some clients. I've got a really good client I've done a lot of work for in New Orleans, but I've got a guy on the ground. He's not where should I lay down? Are you going to be my psychiatrist?
I don't know if I could help you, but I could definitely give you some. I've got nothing but opinions, man.
So my guy on the ground doesn't have the skill set that I have. He doesn't have the experience. He can't provide the services that I could if I were there. But he's got a Matterport camera. He's actually got a Theta. He's got a FLIR. He can do an okay job. So the work we have currently is justifying him being there. He lives there. He lives in Metairie.
Yeah, outside.
And so my overhead for him, he already lives there. He doesn't. If job stops today and he doesn't find a new one tomorrow, he's going to go on with his life, and I don't have no ongoing overhead. Where if I get myself down there, right, I'm thinking about driving. It's 31 hours, but I've got a hotel. Mm-hmm. I've got daily, food or whatever else. I've got gas, a rental car if I decide to fly. All those things. I mean, we're talking $300-$400 a day. Maybe it can be cheaper than that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going down there to start work, to fulfill a contract. I'm going down there to prospect. And my gut tells me I'm doing the wrong thing. I should prospect here. I should lock it in here before I go. But a lot of people I'm talking to say, you got to get here. You got to hear. Because you can't. Yeah. If you're not here, it's like you don't exist. And to a certain extent, that's right.
Yeah.
Someone might need my services, but if I'm 31 hours away, my services I'm dead to them until I get there. So I'm balancing that, because if I'm going to leave, I'm going to leave tomorrow morning. I'm going to pack all this crap over here and, throw it in my truck and I'll drive. Cause I just want, we're talking $200 or 200 pounds worth of gear here. Drones and Matterport cameras and FLIRs and all that, and lights and
you'll be moving the entire operation there. What type of work would you be doing there though?
Inspections, documenting, and a lot of estimate writing.
Okay. Inspections and estimate writing for restoration companies?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Houston was my trial run for this model I'm trying out. And it works like this. Somebody goes in, this was me in Houston, had a client and said, hey, we got more work right after the freeze this year. We got more work than we know what to do with. We need help getting that volume into the funnel and getting it into production. So I went with my Matterport camera. I'd show up on the job site or on the home, all residential. There was a couple commercials in there, and I would scan it with my Matterport. I would take some scope notes. I would email the scope notes to my back office, to my desk person writing sheets, and I would upload the Matterport on my way to the next job. Okay. By the time that Matterport processed in an hour, 2 hours. So by the time I was almost done with the second job scanning, my folks were writing the estimate for the first job. And the high fidelity of the data coming out of Matterport is unreal. We take that, we put it into a sketch in Xactimate. We take the scope notes that were written on site, and we have the Matterport up, and we write it. Anyway, it's really good. The model works.
Yeah.
But I'm expensive.
Right.
I can't afford to have me doing that. I need to have somebody else doing the Matterports. And that's what I ended up doing when I came back from Texas. I had a couple more clients say, hey, are you going to be in San Antonio? No, I'm in Oregon. I'm not coming back.
Yeah, right.
Well, we need this done. So I was able to find Matterport guys who were just sitting on their hands because they work for real estate. And real estate's doing nothing right now as far as Matterport or scanning because things are selling too fast. So you've got an army, I don't know how much this applies to the IA world because you guys don't have a lot of margin, right? You don't have a lot of money to go spend on every single one of these claims. But I was able to get Matterport done by a third party professional who did it for a living for half of what I was charging. Easily half. Hotel in San Antonio, I would have charged $10,000 to scan that place. And the folks that went out there charged me $3,500.
Wow. Okay.
So that's where I see the industry going is further cutting up all these tasks that we do on every claim and farming them out to folks that are just, that's all they do. And they do it real cheap. They do it good and cheap, which two things you don't often hear in the same sentence. Good and cheap don't necessarily go together, but you can. I mean, I just had a apartment building in Mississippi, Hattiesburg. Ever heard of that one?
Yeah, Hattiesburg. Okay. Yep.
Well, I had a client call me out of Denver. Hey, I've got this apartment, 12-unit apartment building that I need scanned. Can you get there? And at the time, he thought I was bringing someone from Ohio, so they were going to go right through Hattiesburg to get it done. I couldn't get it done, but I found a Matterport guy, and I'm not afraid to say it. So I'm charging 20 cents a foot commercial to scan. This guy did it for 10, and he did a great job. I made 10 cents a foot.
Right.
That's the future of our industry is finding. We're going to become middlemen. We're going to be directors,
right?
And directing the claims and piecing them together. And it's going to be, as long as we can develop a good system. And I think this applies on your side and my side. It's about the system. If you can get a good system in place, I hope to get, like I said earlier, 500 subcontractors across the country. With that army of subcontractors, there is no job we couldn't do and couldn't do quickly.
You need that army. Yeah. Is there a way you can set up a system now for this New Orleans thing? I mean, so if you have somebody that's down there, I mean, is he at a point where he's being overwhelmed with work? Right. Well, what is his job, I guess, first? Is he writing up too, or is he just doing Matterports?
No, just inspections.
Just inspections, running the Matterport, and then he takes that data, his scope notes, notes or whatever. Then he takes that, and then where does that go? What does he do with that?
It comes back to me. It comes back to you. And then 2 of those losses he inspected last week. Last night I farmed it out. I put it in the system, and I've got a nice system. I think it's cobbled together. It's a Franken system, but it works. Yeah. So I got up, make sure all the data was in place, and clicked a button, and it, an email goes out. Hey, Bobby, this is your claim. Here's the data. Here's a Google Drive. Blah blah blah. Write it up.
Right.
So yeah, I mean that works. I just feel like I could probably go sell a whole lot more work if I was there. That's what it comes down to for me. I think there's a lot of, I'm dealing with FOMO. FOMO is the enemy, right?
You got to be careful with that FOMO. Yeah, I've been a victim of FOMO too many times.
Because we've got, so I technically have 2 guys on the ground. So one guy's there, he lives there. Another guy came out of Ohio. He goes home on Thursday, and I'm thinking if I can get there Friday or Saturday, we can do a nice transition, because there's a big possibility he could sell a bunch of work today. Like it could. Yeah. We've been talking on a daily basis, and it looks like he could get into, a set of 20 houses in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
And if that happens, that's what I'm thinking about, is like, I just need to be on the road already. If I'm driving, I need to be on the road before that happens, because I've got 3 days. Anyway, that's.
Well, I mean, how are you finding the work now, though, down in New Orleans?
It's coming in, mostly LinkedIn, a little bit of Facebook.
LinkedIn and Facebook, like paid ads on Facebook and LinkedIn, or all organic?
That's a sad thing. I've spent some money on paid ads. I got bupkis. I got nada.
Really?
And that's probably it's executional problem. It's probably design issue. The call to action wasn't right. I didn't have the right audience. I spent $1,500 and I got nothing from it, but at this point, my years and years of content and my constant, consistent messaging, that's what's getting the work. People are like, hey, are you here yet? And that's the other thing. Are you here yet? No. Okay, click. Come on, man.
I guess the only thing I would say, if I were in your shoes, I would be dealing with the same thing, thinking it would be better if I get down there, because nobody's going to sell your bit. You're a salesperson. You know
Exactly.
that nobody's going to sell your business better than you. You are the best salesperson on that team. It's not always the case with every business where the founder is going to be the best salesperson. Some people are not good, but if you have confidence in your ability, absolutely, you could get down there and start landing jobs left and right. As you know, though, the problem with that is you're switching your focus from the business to just making money. You're kind of becoming more of a, incentivized employee at that point. You're not built. We talked about it before, the systems, you're kind of doing away with building a system that works and building a business that works, where you can just watch the business and watch everybody else. And instead of doing that, you're just getting down there for that instant gratification of saying, yeah, I still fucking got it. I landed a job and I'm going to get another one here. I'm the best, which is stimulating. It feels fucking good when you make wins like that. But you know what else is a fucking win? Making 10 million in a year and working less than the average average roofer, that's a great feeling there. Man, it's tough, but I would avoid it at all costs. I'd avoid it. It's
a big cost.
Right. I mean, if you've got a little bit, if you have some type of system right now, and it sounds like you do, you've got the guy down there, it comes up to you, you facilitate it to somebody else. It might not be the best system, but you've got something down there. And from Oregon, you can just spend your time, spend those 36 hours instead of standing behind your windshield, spend it in a fucking closet and just perfect that system, figure out what you've got to do. What people do you need out there? Are they just people that know how to use Matterport? Do they have Matterport? Can you get Matterports down there? How can you get a staff down there that can land these jobs? And then how are they going to get the jobs too? Double down on the marketing and just make it so that you are getting overwhelmed with these scopes on there. How many people do you have to write the estimate? Do you have after to farm them out to?
3 that are close.
Three that are close?
3. I mean, I call them my in-house guys. But then my secret's out. I use Write Loss for a ton of my overflow. I am probably the most
so at this point you can scale it. Okay. So you got that part, fine. You just got to get, I guess it's that, you got to get figure out that call to action and get get whatever his name is, the boots on the ground, the 2 guys, and just get them overwhelmed, man. You ain't got to be there for that, because if you're down there, you could land 100% of every job, every door you knock, or whatever the case is. You could be the best fucking salesperson that you could possibly have down there. But that will just mean that you yourself as a business has one good salesperson down there.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah.
One.
We run into that. When do you go from an LLC to a C Corp or an S Corp and start? What's your first hire? And that's where I'm at, Jeremy. Professionally, like I got to be an S Corp. I've got to put myself on salary. I got to put my wife on a salary. So, I got to do this serious stuff. And I have this, I think it's entrepreneurial guilt that I don't have a quote real business yet.
Oh yeah. Nah.
Big time. It bothers me big time. But, all these people, these people that are down there for me, they're not my employees. They're, so I don't have as much, I feel like I don't have as much control.
It's a little tougher. I mean, listen, man, it doesn't you don't feel much better once you're an S Corp because they're all right. Yeah. They're not, first of all, my opinion of the whole thing, man, you don't want employees. Employees are like the last fucking resort. Because then when you let them go, you got to deal with the paperwork. First of all, if you don't have an HR person, somebody that's going to handle this shit, then that's just more shit for you to handle. Then they leave. First of all, what happens? You got
Wait, is this the voice of experience?
yeah, I'm telling you, because at first, years ago, I had the same entrepreneurial guilt. I was like, listen, I'm just a fucking Momo, single owner LLC. That doesn't even mean anything, come to find out. And so I want to be S Corp. I'm going to put myself on payroll. I'm going to have employees, and I had this thing where I wanted employees. I wanted to feel good because I had like people on payroll, right? And then I did. And then I hired people. And you know what fucking happens when you hire people? Eventually they quit or they have to take leave or they suck and you have to fire them. And then after that, you know what happens? Unemployment happens. And then you got to file that paperwork. Oh, and then insurance. And it becomes a headache. And then I just sit there and I'm thinking, and then you have to have payroll service, which you already have, but then you're paying more for the payrolls. It complicates things. Meanwhile, you could have an independent contractor who has no rights, and you just got to file one piece of paper if they make more than like $600 or something like that. And that's a wrap. That's it. They're done. I mean, you can have a great relationship with an independent contractor where they're coming back to you. I mean, look at the IAs. They're mostly all independent contractors, and they're going back to the same people. They're basically acting as employees, but they don't get no benefits.
Right.
It's the same thing. And if they decide to leave, and if you want to get rid of them, if you're not pleased with what they're doing, then fucking stop giving them work. That's it.
Going. Yeah.
You don't have to have that tough conversation. I mean, you might have had some tough conversations with them because, you want to keep them, but they're not producing the way that you want. But
that's hard.
Ultimately, like if you bring somebody on because they looked good and it's just not the right fit for you, you move on. It's over. You don't have to deal with that fucking person ever again. And it's beautiful.
What was your solution? Are you still organized that way, or
I'm an S Corp. Yeah. I mean, I'm an S Corp, but
even downsizing and.
Yeah. I mean, I just, I hired a few people on and I realized that wasn't the best route, that everything is just simpler. I mean, so even now, I mean, it's just, my payroll is family. My family's on the payroll, but and outside of that, I'm mostly just everything's independent contractors. I don't really have any full-time positions as it is. So, that being so, circle back to what you were saying, don't be worried about that. The best, man, there was a quote. I think it was, I don't want to butcher it and give misinformation here, but to me, I've learned that the only thing, if you are able to make, let's say you made $100 million business and you have $100 million business, you've got 500 employees, you've got massive overhead, you've got a board, you've built a huge business and it's $100 million business. You did well. You did really, really well. And that's your baby. You know what's more impressive than that? A $100 million business and you're the only employee. How did that happen? That's impressive. So, I mean, yeah, I would avoid the employee trap and I feel like a business now trap because, man, listen, you don't get bonus points for feeling like a business, It's just,
I love it.
So, yeah. So, I mean, focus on that, man. Just, I would, if you could swing it, man, focus on that business, just build it up and even if it's not like a huge success where even if you don't make as much off Ida in New Orleans than you would have if you were to get down there and knock on doors and do sell the jobs yourself. If you spend the time, this is just my opinion. What the fuck do I know? If you spend your time right now, instead of being down there, selling the jobs yourself, and even if doing that would make you more money, if you reallocated your time from driving down there, getting the equipment set up, all of that stuff, to just focusing on your system, focusing on the process, even if you don't make as much off Ida, This go around, guess what? And you know this, Ida's going to happen again. Ida's going to happen somewhere else.
Over,
It's
over
going
and
to
over.
keep happening. It's going to keep happening. And when that happens again, you might be in a little bit better of a position to say, you know what? Definitely not going there. I've had, a year, a month, a couple weeks to look at this process and perfect this process. Now let's try this a second time. And then if you're able to make more than you would if you were down there, guess what? You got the fucking secret sauce.
Yeah.
And now you're unstoppable.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. I appreciate that.
We'll see what happens, man. Cause this storm season already, it's pretty busy.
Well, Mother Nature, I tell everyone that wants to hear it or cares that we are in the most recession-proof industry ever.
Right.
Mother Nature is throwing 100-year events at us at a 3-year interval, and that interval is actually reducing. I don't. You don't have to go too deep into the science when you talk about the transatlantic current stopping. That's some serious shit. That's Manhattan underwater type shit, and that is not going to make the weather any better. The extreme weather events are just getting started. The next 5 years are going to be murder. I mean, there's just going to be mayhem, and I want, to your point, I want my business to be in a position to handle that volume.
Right.
In Texas, February 28th, on March 1st, there was 5.5 million claims filed, right? Thereabouts, because the entire state froze. The entire state froze because of an extreme weather event and piss poor planning.
Right.
Do you think Texas is the only state has piss poor planning?
Exactly. No. Yeah.
I mean, look at the backup pump levee systems that New Orleans was supposed to have. They still had monumental flooding.
Right.
So as long as the insurance companies have money, we're going to be in business.
Right. And believe you me, they will. They will if there's one thing they are going to protect, that's going to be their money.
Well, and as you look at, COVID was an earnings event for all of the major carriers. Mm-hmm. You look at 2019 versus 2020 CEO compensation for State Farm. That guy went from 8 million to 18 million.
Really?
In bonuses. State Farm, look it up.
How does that work?
$18 million bonus. They didn't have any claims. Their claims volume went way down.
Right.
You take the extreme events out of it, and the overall claims, there's less auto claims. There was less, just less claims overall.
Less need for claim service providers too. So, that cost is down.
Not every, I think USAA did it, but not every carrier was kind enough to return those unearned premiums.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
People were living in a whole lot less risk, but still paying premiums as if life was normal. And that's where the earnings event, it's an earnings event. But even extreme events, I don't know how much you know about the mechanics of how insurance companies make money, but they make money in extreme events because those reserves get set. Those reserves get set for 100, that X, but they pay out X times 0.75. They keep 0.25. That money comes out of they can't touch that money until that reserve is set. But once it comes out of that, it goes in a general fund. And then it's a game. It's a game of, okay, how little can we pay out of this? Because I want to keep the rest.
Right.
That's the real claim game. I don't know anyone that really understands that at a deep level, but
I know I don't.
The claims department is a profit center at this point. It didn't used to be like that. You can see the claim. I started in 2000, and back then you could still take an adjuster to take golf with an adjuster and go have beers, and you would have this relationship. They'd call you once a week or once a month with a loss, and there was no, you shouldn't. Oh, we don't pay for masking. We don't pay for masking.
I love that.
Service. Oh, service, dispatch service fee. Oh, that's part of doing business.
Right.
There's
It's
none of that
overhead.
horseshit
Yeah.
because there was nobody telling them they got to make money,
Right.
right? Because as an adjuster, if you're taking money away from an estimate, you're making money for your company, and that's by design.
Mm-hmm.
But that's, frankly, what I fight against every single day.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're set at whether it's 250 billion or 300 billion in claims a year, we can rely on that. And all I want is 0.5%. That's all.
Me too, man. That's all I want. That's it. Oh man, Andy. Well, let me ask you this, man. We're gonna wrap this bad boy up, but I wrote this down as something to end with because you're my restorer guy.
Okay.
What and lately, we've had here in New Jersey from Ida historic flooding. I got freaking flooded out. I got hit. I was running claims up in New England, right? The day Ida hit, or the day that Ida was coming in through New Jersey, right? So, it's coming up here. And first, to go back on these storms and the weather events, we were supposed to get rain. It was supposed to be shitty. I was inspecting some claims, and I'm trying to get home so that, or I'm trying to get these, roofs looked back from Henry, whoever the fuck.
Henri, yes,
Henri. Yeah. So I'm trying to get that done before the rain comes down. That's it. We're supposed to just get some rain. So I start driving back, and I'm driving through New York, and start getting, the flash, phone goes off, flash flood warning, all that. And I'm like, oh, I better hurry up. No big deal. Get this shit all the time. So, and then, rain starts coming down and starts getting heavy, heavy, heavy. And then I get on the highway that leads to where I live, and I start going through, I'm driving a truck, and I start going through some flooded areas. So I'm going through flooded area, and eventually the highway shuts down. So I have to get off the highway, do some back roads, get back on the highway, shut down again. And I'm going through different areas of flooding, but, manageable, right? And then I get to a point where the highway shut down. There's a police officer right there at the flood, and the side street that I would normally take to try to find my way around, it doesn't go anywhere. So I'm kind of fucked. Right. So I go in there and I'm thinking, what do I do? Well, the highway shut down. So it's a highway with a median, right? And the highway shut down, and I'm looking up the highway, and I think, you know what? Fuck it. I start driving the opposite way. I get up. I go find a Wawa, a 24-hour gas station convenience store. Lights are on. It's on high ground. Food, water, bathroom. I look at it and I think,
You're camping.
I think, yeah, I could camp here, wait this thing out, go get myself a sub, maybe, do some laptop work, and that's it. But I really wanted to go home, man.
Mm-hmm.
So this Wawa was at a corner at an intersection. So I was able to cross over the highway. Now I'm 10 minutes away, 10, 15 minutes away from my house, right? So I go up to this road, and there was this road that runs parallel to a stream, and the stream was was flooding. So I couldn't find my way on the other side of this road. So I'm going to all these different intersections on these back roads, just trying to cross it. And there was no having it. So I'm looking at Google Maps on my phone, and it has the little red lines, where there's backup. And I find an area where it's not red. And I'm thinking maybe it's not that bad right there. So I work my way.
Or maybe it's 2 feet underwater.
Right. So I work my way to this road that intersects with it. And I see that way off in the distance where this road is, there's lights going back and forth. It looks like people are crossing. I'm like,
that's a
there
good
we
sign.
Go. Let's get home, baby. So I start going over. On my way there was a thing called, I found out now, something called Stony Brook, which is another body of water. So I cross this bridge. As I'm crossing this bridge, I look over to my left, and it's just violent waves splashing over this little short. It's like a 15-foot concrete bridge from like 1920. Waves are 10, 15 feet in the air coming over. I look at it because if you've seen stuff like this on TV, you've never seen it in real life.
Yes.
Right. You don't really have much to compare it to, as in like, oh, I've been a part of this before. This is fucking bad. You don't really have that. So I look over and I'm like, that shit doesn't look normal. And
That ain't normal.
so I get back on the road and I see that there's a fucking ton of water in front of me. And I'm like, oh shit, I don't know how deep this goes. And as that's happening, water comes from behind me. And it was high enough at this point. I've already driven through like 5 floods that night, but with reasonably like confident I was getting through it. And the water came up high enough on the side. And I thought, this isn't good. So I made a quick left because any road was better than the road I was on. And the road that I turned off of, it was just a river coming down that road. And just the water hit the hood, truck shut down, and I'm screwed.
What?
So, yeah. So at that point, I'm like, shit, what do I do?
That Wawa was sounding pretty nice right about
then. Yeah. So I look around, I got my backpack in there. I look around. I'm like, I'm fucking throw my laptop in there because you can take my truck and you're not taking my fucking claims though. That's my money. You're not having those. So I packed that in, and thankfully there was a couple people right outside of a house nearby that were out there, and they came in. So it's about waist high water.
Holy smokes!
They're like, get out, get out, get out. So I roll my window down. I'm putting my stuff together. I hand them my bag and I climb out through the window, and we go to this house for safety. We get to this house, and no sooner than I get in there, I'm soaking wet, from the flood and the rain coming down because it's pouring. And as soon as we get in there, that road that I had turned off of, there was a kid, like an 18, 19-year-old kid, trapped in a car. So the water was going down in one direction, and it pinned his little SUV. It was like one of those crossovers. Mm-hmm. Pinned his vehicle against a telephone pole.
Oh, shit.
So the water's just hitting his car. So they're like, there's a kid trapped in there. And this family, I know very, very little Spanish, un poquito, very little Spanish. And this was a huge family. One person knew Spanish or knew English.
New English, yeah.
Right. So they're like, there's a kid trapped. And I say, well, let's go. So we get out there, and we're in a foot of water just in a yard. And on the opposite, so this road now is a river. Mm-hmm. It was just a river going down.
It happened fast.
Very fast. Yeah. I mean, we went 0 to 60 like very, very quickly. So anyway, long story short, we end up putting ropes together, and we tied a rope to we had a moving strap and a couple like those little thin nylon ropes. And we found a milk jug, gallon milk jug. And we filled that up with water, tied it off. We had to get this kid to bust open his window because, his car was shut down. So we had to bust his window out. We threw this thing across, and we had to psych this kid up because at this point, the water in the middle of the road was like 5-6 feet, something like that.
And he's freaking out.
Oh, he's freaking out big time. Yeah. We had to convince him to get off the phone because he was on the phone with his father and he wouldn't get off the phone. And eventually,
you're trying to do this from across a flooded road.
About 20, yeah, I'd say like 25 feet away, something like that. And we all had a come to Jesus moment when that kid, because I had already tried to cross myself. I tied the rope around my waist and I thought I could ford the river, but there was no shot. I mean, this debris going by like 15 miles an hour. So we threw the thing over. He tied it around his waist, and we had to psych him up to get in the water. And I knew that once this kid and it was a pretty big kid, maybe like 5'9", something like that, 5'10". As soon as this kid jumps in the water, that river's going to take him. And it's up to me and these 2 or 3 other guys who I just met. Hopefully we don't go in too. Yeah. Right. Hopefully that all the ropes are tied tight and this kid stays in there. And all I remember, man, this kid jumped in, went underwater, and I jumped forward. And I just started pulling. Look, I blacked out. I just started pulling, walking the other way, and we managed to get this kid out. But man, it was just catastrophic flooding.
Well, I mean, if you've never been, I've taken a couple NOLS courses. What NOLS is? Something NOLS, leadership school. Mm-hmm. And fording rivers is no joke. I mean, that's a number one killer of backpackers, trying to ford, and once it gets above your knee, it's dangerous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're talking about 4 feet of water. That's just a mountain of energy. You cannot fight. You cannot fight that.
There was no chance. I started walking because at first I'm pumped full of, adrenaline at this point, and this kid's trapped, and I'm just thinking, so we got these ropes together, and I said, tie the moving strap around the tree, and I'm tying this. And there was a car that was still parked on my side, on the side that we were on. So I used that. I like started, pressing against that as I'm moving closer and closer. And I can feel that little gap between the back bumper and the road, and that little foot right there. I could feel my ankles getting pushed under the car. And as soon as I got to the corner of the car, I couldn't step a foot on my own. Yeah, I just started getting wrapped up. They had to pull me back in.
There's no way.
Yeah.
You can't fight it.
Yeah,
Lord.
it was
That's
it was the most
scary.
heroic shit that I have ever been a part of. As terrible as that sounds. But as that was happening, as we were trying to save this kid, I watched my truck float on by, and I'm just thinking,
oh no.
Well, it had 300,000 on it anyway.
Yeah, well. Hopefully you get the ACV out of that thing and get into it.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, man. We're going to wrap this bad boy up. But the one question that I really wanted to end with is, because you're my restoration guy, what, and I've been thinking about doing restoration for years now, especially that's how I got into that long story, is because now we've had all this catastrophic flooding. Your serve pros, your service masters, all these people,
they're overwhelmed.
There's lists. Yeah. Nobody can find anybody to tear out their basement. Nobody. So I told, I told a buddy of mine, man, just get lawn signs and a Sharpie marker and just start dropping them somewhere. You're going to be booked up by the end of this week. What are restoration companies today for the small ones, right? The small ones. What did you say before? The guy in the van,
the man in the van with a fan.
I love that. Yeah,
or
guy.
The truck in the truck.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Yeah, down by the river. So that person, what are they getting wrong right now? What do they need to switch, to put that switch on? What do you think?
What are they getting wrong? Interesting question. I think the number one thing new restorers do is they try to be all things to all people, and they don't make a intentional decision at the beginning. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a mitigation guy, or I'm going to be a mold guy, or I'm going to be a repair guy. And that's where you get all these conglomerates of, we've got contents, we've got electronics, we've got soft goods, we've got mitigation, we've got repairs. The guy that succeeds decides he's going to do one thing well, because you can't do everything well. So the guy that's going to go succeed in that situation is going to be, I'm a mitigation only. All I do is I come suck out water, I rip out rotted material, I do muck outs, and I might dry a building down. A lot of the buildings we're seeing in New Orleans, it's been 14, 16, 17 days. We're drying by demolition. We're ripping out materials, but we're not putting drying equipment in because it's been too long. It's already dry. We just got to get the material out because it's mucky and rotting. So what are people doing wrong? They're trying to be all things to all people, and they're trying to go outside. They see an opportunity, and I think this speaks to my earlier problem. They see an opportunity that's outside of their wheelhouse. Maybe it's just a little bit outside their wheelhouse, but it's not part of what they do on a day-to-day basis. It's an add-on. Well, I'm going to go chase that money, and I may have to learn a new skill. I may have to, go down a different path than I was intention. I say it all the time, if you weren't intending to go respond to a hurricane this year, you probably shouldn't be responding to a hurricane this year. These folks in your backyard, and it's all across the country, but New Jersey is a great example. They weren't planning on tornadoes and flash floods. They had a business to run. So what was your core business? If your core business is gone, yes, you've got to do whatever it takes. A lot of these businesses, their core is gone. Their client base is gone, everything else. So they have to shift into something else. But if you don't have to shift into something else, just keep doing what you're doing. Be a good mitigation guy. And disaster, these cat situations, once you respond meaningfully to one person on the block, you're going to own that block. And that's where I tell folks responding to hurricanes and everything else. Once you get that one client, sign that client before you go. And that goes back to my rule. Sign the client before you go. Get the contract before you go.
Right,
But once
right.
you
That's
get
sales,
them,
yeah.
that's sales. Once you're on site, doing that work for that one person, you're going to own that block because there is nobody else. You just said it. There's nobody else doing it. Everyone's overwhelmed. Everyone has a wait
Right.
list. So that's what you can do right is just concentrate on the one thing, concentrate on the one house, the one client, and then let the rest happen. Don't try to force anything, and don't go outside your wheelhouse. If I'm going to be an asbestos and mold guy now. Well, were you yesterday? Well,
Right.
no. Then you got no business, man. Go find somebody to do that work.
Right.
That's what we're doing. They're just trying to do too much.
Focus on the one thing, perfect that one thing, and then go from there.
Yeah.
I think that applies to so much. Applies to so much. But Andy, we should definitely, I want to see if we can maybe get
let's get Herring on here.
Get Herring on here for a three-way, do a three-way with Herring. That sounds weird.
I like it when you talk like that.
All right. We're going to have to, do a lot of icebreakers like that and get a little smirk on his face.
Yeah.
But that would be great. Good. Yeah, man. All right. So Andy, you're one of the guys with, a nice following on there. So where can people find you right now?
Well, they can always email me, Andy@claimsdelegates.com. But LinkedIn is a great place. Andrew G. McCabe on LinkedIn. I accept most connection requests. Most.
Good.
Not overly salesy. Don't try to sell me financing for my business.
And project management and whatever else.
Yeah, Facebook. I've got a few pages out there for the restoration folks in your audience. Look up the Restoration Rebels. Obviously, we don't let adjusters in.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
There's a good reason. We had issues with screenshots of conversations being spread to other places in the interwebs which is not cool, and people were getting fired.
Yeah.
So Restoration Rebels, we started 2013, 2014, something like that. A little bit later after we got started, we had about 3,000 members at that point. I think it's 6,500 at this point. We decided to do a Google map. We wanted to show the Rebel Nation on a Google map. And we had, a little Rebel icon. Where's my Rebel icon?
I think I remember seeing something like this on LinkedIn or something.
That little flame thing, stealing liberally from Star Wars. So we had this map a day. That map wasn't even up 24 hours. I started getting phone calls. Take me off the map. Take me off the map. What do you mean? Take me off the map. These people were getting calls from USAA, Alacrity, Contractor Connection. Get off that map. What are you doing there? Yeah, I don't want you on that Facebook group. No, we're going to turn you off. We're going to take your business away if you persist in this group. And that's why we don't. I have friends who are independent adjusters. I have friends who are adjusters. That's why we don't let adjusters into the Restoration Rebel group, because it's dangerous, very realistically dangerous for people's business. So there's a level of anonymity that unfortunately we still have to have, because not everyone can be like me. I am out there 100% because I'm taking those arrows, I'm taking those shots, because you can't fire me from me. You can't fire me from my own business.
Right.
Obviously you can fire me from something else.
Yeah.
I've had several other jobs, fired, just for having an opinion in the public eye. It's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous.
It puts that, and then comes that question of integrity. Are you going to let another entity compromise your own integrity and take control of your business?
Yep.
In a small way, right? They are taking control of your business. They are telling you what you need to do in order for you to continue to get food out of that hand.
Who works for who? Who works
Right.
for who?
Who's working for who at that point?
Mhm.
Right. Do you feel those, when that happened, do you feel like the companies that reached out to you and said, get me off that list, do you think that they made the right decision by saying that?
I think they made the right decision in the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully they took it as a watershed moment. That's probably not the right word, but as a, hey, I need to do some introspection and I need to take a hard look at my business model and see
Right.
if this is going to work for me. A lot of those guys persisted and they stopped doing program work, and they are better for it.
Right.
Look at, a great case in point, Allied Restoration out of Los Angeles. OP Alvarez.
Yes, I know Al. Oh man, yeah, I know who they are.
Have
Yeah.
you got to get OP on this because besides restoration, OP Alvarez is just a phenomenal human being. Huge energy. He's got a great TED Talk out there too.
I think that's who. Okay, I think that's who I shared a clubhouse room with a couple times.
Okay.
All I know is I'm pretty sure he was Allied I can't remember his name, but he was Allied Restoration. I remember he had a pretty good title, and his avatar was him at a TED Talk.
Okay.
So it might be it. I'm sorry. Go on.
Wrap up the story. OP. Back in the day, they were doing. They were on State Farm's PSP program, Premier Service Provider, program, and doing millions. I don't know how many million, but they were doing a lot. As was a lot of other restorers at the time. And I want to say this is 2010. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. 2008. No, it was right before the recession. So 2006. Okay, it was early on.
Okay.
2006, 2007, somebody at State Farm said, yeah, this program's not working. And overnight, with no warning, they flipped a switch. State Farm flipped a switch and turned off the PSP program. Overnight, thousands of contractors went out of business. And
Wow.
OP's business was almost one of them. And at that point, he decided, I'm not going to let somebody else, some other business, determine the destiny of me and my business. And he went full bore into the high net worth market. And now Allied Restoration is the premier high net worth restoration service provider in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had a choice between going to a trailer park and handling a water damage or going to Mariah Carey's house and handling a water damage, I'm going to choose Mariah Carey's house.
Right.
So OP is a perfect example of somebody who was on that map who said, no, you're not going to intimidate me. Because what is that? At the end of the day, if a program is calling a contractor to get them off a map, that program is scared.
Right.
Because what that map represents is them going away.
Independence. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, but I could see the same thing happening on the independent adjusting side.
100%.
They need these claims handled. They need licensed adjusters to handle these claims. They need us more than we need them.
Mm-hmm.
So what's stopping us, and I'm putting my IA hat on, what's stopping us from putting our own network together? We can probably get a network of 150 adjusters to cover this country and handle a good volume of claims and screw 60% of somebody else's fee schedule.
Yeah.
Here's my price. Yes, I can cover it. Yes, I can get there. Here's my deliverable. I've got a system for these deliverables. Why has no one done that on an independent side? And I'll tell you, they don't have to. They're playing good enough. They're playing game. They're playing my lifestyle is good enough game.
Right.
They're not playing to hit it out of the park. They're not playing to scale. They're not playing to build something that's gonna live beyond them. When they retire, my little independent adjusting shop is gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what about building something bigger that will outlast? I think, Jeremy, I see you as having the potential to build something like that. And it's not a FU, carriers, it's hey, I'm standing up for myself. A
Right.
lot like, look at what Uber did to, I hate using Uber. It's so cliche, but look at what Uber did to
Yeah.
taxis.
Right.
Uber didn't set out to destroy taxi services. That's how the taxi services saw it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just a natural progression of technology in society. I think we've played on both sides of this coin we're playing right now with old systems for far too long.
Right.
And it's just someone's going to come up with something very dead simple, and it's going to be an elegant solution to our overbuilt, infrastructure. We got so much stuff built into every claim. It doesn't need to be. We can have very flat claims handling structure. Claims are going to handle faster and fairer with more transparency. But there's no incentive in the current systems for transparency. Zero.
Right. Right.
It's one of the most opaque functions. It's next to getting a mortgage. It's very opaque. It's just, there's so many. We just do it because this is the way it's always been done. We don't ask questions. Well, what if we did? What if there was a different way? I see that happening. There's going to be a sea shift.
Yeah.
I don't know what it looks like, but yeah.
It's tough. I recently started. You ever hear of Handy, the Handy app?
Why does this? No, I'm not familiar.
I don't know if that's out on that way, but so I recently started using this thing called the Handy app, and it's an app for, I don't know if you've ever heard of TaskRabbit or
Sure.
Tasker,
Robotic Turk or something like that.
So it's just an app that you can go on, and if you need like a picture hung or a desk put together, you could go on there, and it's handy people, handymen, handy people, whatever you want to do. Yeah. So you could just find those people easier. But for years, even, once I discovered Upwork, I'm thinking, why is this so similar to the process that is followed to get an independent adjuster to go inspect a claim or an adjuster to go to inspect a claim? It's so similar in a lot of different ways, but so completely different from the way that it is actually handled, which right now, it has a very messy way of getting handled. Meanwhile,
what's amazing is that it gets handled.
It gets handled expensively, but handled. A lot of people get paid off the handling of that claim.
A lot of people.
Sometimes the one person who gets paid the least is the actual policyholder.
How many people get paid in a claim that don't have, it's not their claim?
Yeah. Oh, tons. I mean, look,
layers.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a TPA involved too, they're going for, the claim is opened, then it's referred out to a TPA. The TPA understands that a field assessment needs to be made. So maybe I have one where I have a few. You have the TPA, and then they farm the inspection out to another company. They get that company to go out there. So you got two companies now. You got a file review, an administrator, a dispatch person that's getting paid. You have a desk adjuster for the TPA that's getting paid. And then they're going to send it out to the IA firm to do the field. And the IA firm farms it out to an independent adjuster. Independent adjuster goes out there and they say, well, this da-da-da-da-da. And they say, well, we're going to need to send an engineer out there. So the engineer comes out there, they get out there, and then they come up with an opinion. And at the end of the day, the claim gets denied.
Right.
So you've spent easily over, $1,000, $2,000 just to play the claim game on a denied claim.
On a denied claim.
It's crazy.
But
it's crazy.
That is cheaper money. Just like paying somebody $100, to do the do. That $2,000 is cheaper money than paying the claim.
Yeah.
So how many different complicated layers can we stack on top of this? Because at the end of the day, the homeowner is going to look at it and say, no, all right, deny my claim. Okay, fine. I'll figure out something else because it's not worth it. The juice is not worth the squeeze here.
Right.
And I think that's by design, but that's the conspiracy theorist in me.
We got to have that podcast too. Man.
There's a lot there. Well, dude, I appreciate you having me on. This is cool. I got to tell you, I really, since we met before Houston, but we met in Houston. Since then, I've watched you grow, watch you develop your game, and I'm impressed, man. I like what you're doing. Keep up the good work.
Oh man, I appreciate that. Just, trying to build the system better every day, But Andy, fantastic having you. Guys, Andy McCabe, go check out if you're watching this and you've got your own restoration biz, go check out the Restoration Rebels. Find Andy on LinkedIn, find him on Facebook, shoot Andy an email. Andy will help you out, and head on over adjuster-university.com, sign up.
All right, man. Be good. Hey, let me know when you get that new truck. I want to see it.
All right, we'll do. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in this episode. We'll catch you out there on the next one.